Gays Against Guns have made the news again this week as they staged two major protests over the weekend, calling for Donald Trump to release his tax returns and condemning him for supporting national reciprocity. They also linked these two things as if they have something to do with each other, and one of their protests actually ended in a die-in over the National Reciprocity Act of 2017, where they all laid around and basically pretended to be dead over Trump's sick agenda of death. Foreign policy aside, supporting states honoring each other's firearm licensing standards is hardly what I would call an agenda of death. NYU Local called the performance part of the changing face of activism. Earlier in the week, Gays Against Guns protested national reciprocity by marching around a New Jersey city with a body bag. Protesters say if the bill is passed, criminals will go to other states to buy guns and bring them back to New Jersey, as if that doesn't happen already. And then the Brady campaign showed up and somehow tied in Trayvon Martin and crazy Texas gun nuts, and frankly, I just stopped reading. A new study on hearing and noise exposure is being used to support the use of suppressors for firearms. This one is in a medical journal dedicated to the study of the head and neck with a scientific name that I know I will butcher if I try to pronounce, so I will just place it here on the screen. The study found that over half of the shooters studied didn't use adequate hearing protection, and that over 36% of adults reported lifetime exposure to firearm noise. So hearing loss is definitely not the little tiny minor issue the measure's opponents want you to believe. South Carolina's Governor Henry McMaster spoke out in support of permitless carry last week, which I think is super exciting because someday I will live there, and I will not be in Massachusetts, and I will have acres upon acres in South Carolina. But until then, House Bill 3930 would eliminate permits for concealed carrying and was approved by the House earlier this month, and it's now pending in the state Senate. However, the measure is facing some big opposition from the state's Democrats and gun control groups, but their only argument seems to be editorials from the Charleston Post and Courier and the New York Times that basically threatened Dylann Roof-style shootings if the bill were to pass. Former Governor Nikki Haley had also voiced her support for permitless carry in the past, but previous bills had a nasty habit of just never getting to her desk. But to me, what is probably most upsetting about all of this is that some news outlets, like Greenville Online, for example, characterize the bill's opponents as, quote, anti-violence activists, as if owning a gun makes you inherently violent. Even the Greenville police chief is getting on this bandwagon, saying it would lead to violent outbursts, increased crime, and bouts of anti-police violence. I don't think I need to remind anyone that's this far into the video that typically the kind of people that run around committing crimes and throwing violent outbursts and attacking police usually aren't too worried about the law to begin with. But, of course, the anti-violence activists equate this bill to, quote, everyone walking around with an AK-47. A spokeswoman for South Carolina's Moms Demand Action chapter told reporters that the problem is not knowing the average gun owner's intent. She fears that if she happens to run into a gun owner sitting and eating at a restaurant, their intent isn't actually to just sit and eat their meal in peace. In her mind, the only intent behind this is intimidation, which I guess would also end in the person actually being able to eat their meal in peace if everyone else left the restaurant. And for our final story, Russia built an artificially intelligent robot and has now taught it to dual wield a pair of Glocks just in case the need ever arises. The Fedor, the final experimental demonstration object research robot, was created to be sent into space and is expected to be in use before 2021. The Glock training is supposed to help the robot fine-tune its fine motor skills and decisions algorithms, and the Russian Deputy Prime Minister was quick to promise the world that they're not building a Terminator, which means they're probably building a Terminator. That is the quick rundown of your firearm and Second Amendment news for the week. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're over on YouTube, or throw me some upvotes if you're over on VidMe. And if you really like my videos and want to help me spread the message of liberty and firearms and all that goodness, you can also help me by supporting me on Patreon. Until next week, stay safe and happy shooting.